Hey guys, so when I give out install schedules over the summer, we're going to have them broken up into different parts. We'll usually have fronts, so that's what our D line will be aligned in. We'll include stunts, so those are going to be movements from D linemen. Some of them will have pressures and coverages. So this is an easy way that if you are looking at only one part for an install, you can quickly bounce to it. So for our first install, the first front that we're going to look at is our base front. The base front is something that we're going to utilize every game, right? It's something that if we can follow the base rules off of it, we can be successful. But then when we start to tweak and change other pieces and mechanics, we can still come back to these base rules. So it's important that we have a good understanding of them. So here we have our base front, and what the base front looks to do, it looks to shift our two interior defensive linemen, the tackle and nose, and shift them to a particular side. So our Mike linebacker is going to be the one calling the run strength, and this will vary from week to week, but in this diagram, strong left is the call. So what a strong left tells is the tackle and the nose, if they both stood straight up in front of the guards, we're having them shift over to the left. So the tackle is in what's called the three technique. So his inside shoulder is going to be aligned on the outside shoulder of this guard. And then over here, our defensive end is going to have his shoulder aligned, his right shoulder aligned on that inside shoulder of the nose. Defensive ends in the space front without any tight ends are going to have their alignment be on the outside shoulder, their inside shoulder on the outside shoulder of that tackle. If we have tight ends, right, rules change, but in general, we always want you on that outside of the end man on the line of scrimmage. Passing strength is also indicated on here, but again, right now we're focusing just on this base front. So secondary calls are going to come from the safeties. These front calls are going to come from our Mike linebacker. So he's calling a strong left, and again, now we are in our base front. I provide you with a slide here that explains what the rules are for every single one of our players in our base front rules. So secondary, again, your stuff is aligned by alignment. So like a 6x1 means that you are 6 yards back and 1 yard inside, and so on. As we look here at this example of what our base front rules are for visual learners, again, to the strength side, we want these guys playing a gap, right, or playing a zone. On the back side or the weak side, these guys are called heavy. So first of all, on the strength side, what we're looking for is this defensive end. We want you having C-gap responsibility and then ultimately contain. This doesn't mean that we're just going to drift out to the outside, right, and give them lanes to run inside. We still want you making contact on this end man's shoulder, right? But then maintaining like this. All four of our defensive linemen, heel line is going to be a big thing. We don't want you getting so deep in the backfield that gives lanes for teams to cut back on us. So what heel line means is that when you cross that line of scrimmage, you don't want to be any further than the heel of that offensive lineman. So here's where that defensive end is going to be playing. Tackle, again, based on strength, is going to be here in the B gap, and Mike would have A gap responsibility. On the backside, again, if we're playing everything regular, nose has A gap, Will has B gap, and this end has C gap. But on the backside, we have what are called heavy rules. So heavy rules, again, are for the D linemen who are on the weak side. Heavy means that you are going to be reading your block. Okay, we're not as concerned about you holding a particular gap. We're concerned more with you getting into the best spot to make a play, because if for some reason both of these guys get pinned in, this Will linebacker can much more easily become a contained player rather than our Mike. So what heavy means is that if you're heavy, again, you're both still taking a step up field. That's the same. And the reason why you take a step up field is to engage these offensive linemen. We want them to tell us what they're going to do. So once we've both stepped up, starting with this right end, he has two blocks he can get from the guy in front of him. He can get what's called a face block, like this. Anytime you get a face block, probably means that a team's looking to run here, right? Trying to make a wall or a hole, excuse me, for that ball carrier to go. So how heavy rules work is if we happen to get a base block or a face block from this tackle, we are going to have the defensive end go inside. Okay, and the way that we're going to set this up, again, is by taking one step upfield to try get a pass set or run set feed, and then we're going to attack this lineman. We want to put pressure on him to make him show right away which way he's going. So again, if he tries to block you, you get his face, we're going to the inside. If you happen to get a down block, okay, so when I step up, I'm now getting the backside of this offensive lineman. Again, pretty much every team that does down blocks like this, right? We usually have either a fullback coming to kick out or we have a backside guard pulling to kick out. Somebody's coming to kick out. So what we want is we don't want that block to happen out here on this guy. Because if we do that, there's all kinds of alleyways for guys to run the football. So instead, what we want to do is if we get a backside read after we take our step up field, we are going to come underneath this guy and we're going to settle in as close and as tight to the line of scrimmage and inside as we can. If we do that, now that pulling guard or that kick out fullback is trying to make a block here. There's no alley for this running back to go. He's got to bounce it way outside. And that's okay because we have a safety that can come down. We have a linebacker that can come, a corner that can come late. This gives us more control and keeps this play going horizontal rather than vertical. So heavy, again, for this defensive end, he reads the block. He reads the block from this tackle. If he gets a face block, he goes inside. If he gets a backside look, then he's here, pinning on the inside. Nose is pretty much doing the same thing when he's heavy, right? So if we look at this from the nose's perspective, he's going to step up and engage, right? But his read is actually going to be the center. So the reason why we're trying to make contact on this guard is because, again, we want to try to slow him down, first of all. Don't give him a clean shot up to our linebacker. So once we know that this guard has been slowed down, we can then focus on the center. If the center gives us a face block, same thing, the nose is going to go here. If he gets a backside block, so the tackle goes here, he is going to pin and get on the underside like this. So that's heavy. That gives us a way to minimize this short gap and allows our will linebacker to still be able to help on passes and also get into that run fit if we need to. So that is what the base front is. So with that perspective, and again, having this heavy rule down and understanding weak and strong is going to provide us with a lot of flexibility. But what I can also start to look at is, here's a video, by the way, on the heavy technique if you want to see an actual example of this from a college football game. The other thing that our base front does a really good job of lining up for us is belly key rules. So what belly key means is that if we look at just our Mike and Will linebacker, this is who this refers to. Because the Mike is basically always going to be stacked on this tackle, he's anchored with him. If everything works out like the play should, our tackle should have the B gap, Mike should have the A gap. The Will is anchored to the nose. So he should have the B gap, and again, nose should have the A gap. What the belly key means is if our linebackers, if their anchor gets blocked across the belly, so if the tackle gets blocked into this gap over here, that means now that our tackle, well, is occupying the A gap. So what Mike has to do is fill B gap because now that's open. That's all the belly key is. Again, Will has the B gap. If for some reason the nose gets blocked into his B gap, again, he's going to cross the belly of the Will. We are now asking him to fill the A gap. So this is a quick way that we can get our linebackers downhill and into plays more quickly. The next evolution of it, so again, here's an example of what happens when that tackle gets blocked into an A gap. Our linebackers are going to take a 6-inch step to the side, and then they're going to look. If the window's open, so right now there's this lineman's working this way, this one's working this way, there's an open window right here. As soon as that backer sees an open window, he's going to fill it. That's his responsibility for the run play that we're defending this time. If when he reads his belly key and takes a 6-inch step over, sometimes our D end is going to get blocked inside as well. So he may end up here. Well, if Mike looks, right, there's now somebody in his gap. So what he has to do then is keep working outside, scrape and fill in off the edge. So this belly key is going to allow us to really, really get some quick reads and fill our gaps more effectively against teams that especially like to run the ball. Last thing in this part of the slide is stunts. So again, stunts are things that we can do after the ball is snapped to move our linemen. We don't want to do a whole lot of movements pre-snap because then teams can see that on film and react to it. If we do it all post-snap, it's way harder to rep against the teams that are planning against us. So what blood does, a blood call, is after the ball is snapped, and again, the mic is going to be making this call. It tells the tackle in the nose that they're going to align to their strength. So again, we still have a strong left going on here, so they're going to align here. But after the ball is snapped, they're both immediately going to go one gap to the right. They're going to stick over to the right. So here we're going to have the tackle going to the A gap, or the 2-eye technique, and the nose going to the B gap or the 3 technique after the ball is snapped. What that does is it, first of all, changes the rules for the blocking, right, for the offense. But secondly, it makes our read as linebackers a lot easier because we know that our B gaps are going to be covered. So based on our A gap rules, our belly key rules, we're going to be going A gap here, B gap here. The other nice thing about this is that if we know as a team we're going to be stunting right off the bat into a blood, that tells us now that after the ball is snapped, now because he's the 2I and he's the 5, this is going to be our heavy rule side. So we can flip not only our alignment, we can flip the heavy call side just based off this one word called blood. So blood tells the tackle again, he is now the 2I, nose is the 3. D ends, now this right end is on the strength side, so he's going to have C contain, and our left end is heavy, so he can do his face and backside rules that we talked about earlier.